Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'll be talking about the Esri JavaScript API and all its capabilities. So really, when we talk about JavaScript, it's all about web development. And what's great about JavaScript is everything is done client-side, so you don't need anything server-side. And you can use ArcGIS Online and integrate everything together. So I want to start by just briefly discussing ArcGIS Online and what's available in ArcGIS Online, because really there's no point in coding something up that's already available off the shelf, and there's quite a bit in ArcGIS Online that you can do just out of the box. And there's two real main parts to this. There's configurable apps that you can use, and there are widgets that you can use. So you can use Web App Builder, and there's lots of different widgets in there. You can create a web app with any map in ArcGIS Online by using Web App Builder. And the different configurable apps in Web App Builder offer various bits of functionality. For example, layouts and color schemes, editing, identify tools, side-by-side map viewers, and so on. We always like to, where at all possible, use these options because it avoids coding and it avoids the headaches involved with that, such as updating your code and keeping it up to date. The good thing about this is that you can have a starting point. All the configurable apps from ArcGIS Online and the widgets from Web App Builder are available on GitHub, and so the Web App Builder isn't, but the configurable apps are. To get the open source, to get the code behind Web App Builder, you go to the Web App Builder developer site and you can download all the source code behind the widgets there. And so a lot of the time they're a great starting place. Like even if there's stuff you want to do beyond the widgets, you can just download, and that's a great starting place. And there's also a wide range of community open source widgets available, particularly for Web App Builder. So I just want to briefly show you some of the configurable apps that are available. Let's get this link here. This is some of the ArcGIS Online documentation, and it basically lists and gives a description of all the different configurable apps that you're able to use in ArcGIS Online. And if you open any of these, so you have your story maps, you have various different categories for editing data, for comparing maps, and for summarizing data. So we'll just go into one of these and have a quick look. So when you open this, it opens an ArcGIS Online item, and you can view the application and see exactly what the functionality with that particular app is. So in this particular case, it's just a Finder app, and you can search parcels up here, and you can change base maps and various different things like that. But the source code is available if you go down to here. So you can go down to code attachment and click download. So this will bring you to the Esri GitHub account. And so this is the source code behind this Finder app. So if you want to build on this, then you could just download this app and develop yourself. You might wonder how this is set up. So I'm going to give a brief. I'm going to show you how to get set up with something like this. So I'm going to open I'm going to go to a different application. It's just a basic viewer. And I'm going to download the code. You can download it as a zip file, or you can go into the release. Sometimes there's a particular release that you might want. In this case, I'm just going to download the latest. Okay, so that's downloaded to my desktop here, and so I'm going to unzip that. And so there's all the code behind the basic viewer. So I'm going to copy that into just a webinar folder that I've made. Just going to call it basic viewer. Paste that in there. And so now I can go into my browser and go localhost. So there's your local copy of that particular code. This is running off I've enabled ArcGIS on my laptop, and so it's just running locally. So you can look at all the code in here and everything behind it, the HTML, the JavaScript, and there's quite a bit in it. Obviously, it's a nice application, nice basic application, but a lot of the time it does everything you need to do. Okay, so I want to bring this into ArcGIS Online, so I'm just going to put in my computer name here. Instead of putting in localhost, put my computer name. And I'll go into ArcGIS Online, go into my own. And I'm going to register this as an application, so I can add this as an application, and it's going to be a configurable application. So that'll give you the options to configure the application once you bring that through the web map. So I put in the URL here. It's a basic viewer. And I'll add that as an item. And you can see that this gets its own item ID and everything. And you can register as an app if you want, if you need to authenticate. But then you can edit it as well. And down here you have configurable parameters. So this is where you add in basically the sidebar where you configure it. So that code is available in here. So if you go into config, maybe not, maybe resources, yeah. So in resources you have configuration panel. So that's everything you need. You just have to copy that and paste it in here, save it. And if you're doing something like this, you might want to prevent it from being accidentally deleted. So I'll do that and save it. And then you want to add it to the other configurable templates that are available within ArcGIS Online. So to do that, you have to create a group. I'm going to call this group my templates. And just save it. Okay, so then I'll go into my organization and I'll edit my settings to point at this particular group. So in Configurable Apps, go in here and any groups will appear in here. So I'm just going to select my templates. So to obviously you still want to have all the Esri templates within there. So to add them to the group, you just click this button and then you press save. So now we have all the Esri templates in there, but we want to add in this additional custom app. So you just share that with the group. So then you can go into, you can create a web map. So a web map is basically a configuration file, and so in the background it's just JSON, and it has various things like layers and symbolization, and so I'm just going to save this map, and I'm going to say basic viewer map. And let's save that. Okay, so then I want to create my map. So there's my web map ID. So there's a particular ID associated with this particular web map. And I'm going to share that, and I'm going to create a web app. And so now you'll see in here the basic viewer that I've added in is available. So I'm going to select that and create an app. So I forget my password. Okay. Okay, so there's the basic viewer, and you have all the app settings available here. And so then you can develop on that. So if I save this now and click done, so I'm just going to use the defaults and click done. You can open that, and you'll see here that it's actually referencing my local machine, the app that I registered on it. So it's referencing the app that I just created. So then you can, that's basically your starting block. You can start with this app and build on that. If none of the configurable apps really suit you, and you just want a starting point, there is an application boilerplate that's available on the Esri GitHub as well. So this is a good place to just start with if you want to develop a configurable app, but you don't want any of the existing code base. This is a good starting place to get to start you off with that. And again, I'm just going to briefly go into Web App Builder just to show you how you would create a Web App Builder application and the widgets that are available through that. So I'm going to open up the same map again. I'm going to go into the same share options, go create a web app, and up here I have an option to select Web App Builder. So there are lots of different themes here, layouts, styles, and it's referencing my original web map, which obviously has nothing in it. But there's lots of different widgets here, and so there's a full list of them here. And again, you can have a look at these and see if they do what you wanted them to do, and just use them. Otherwise, you can download them and customize them as necessary. And there's documentation available on this as well that goes through their functionality. So this documentation gives basically an overview of each of the different widgets. And so again, you can start with these, or you can start from scratch, whatever suits you. And again, with the web app builder, there's quite a few open source widgets that are available. So on GeoNet, there's a post on here that just goes through basically everything in web app builder, any custom widgets that are available, and it can be really useful. And again, a good starting point, or might even add the functionality that you're looking for. Let's close a couple of these links. Okay, so we were here. Now I'm just going to briefly discuss coding environments. This is just a list of what I tend to use. And there's always new and better ways of doing things. These are just some of the things that I've discovered so far. There's some, if you go onto the Esri developer site, there's a good, I'm going to the guide. There's a good setup section here, I think, yeah. So set up a development environment. There's some good thoughts there that you might find useful for getting set up for developing in JavaScript. Okay, so before I go into the JavaScript API, I briefly want to mention Esri Leaflet. So a lot of people like to use Leaflet. It's an open source library for maps, basically. And the goal of Esri Leaflet is not to replace the JavaScript API, the Esri JavaScript API. It's rather to provide small components to allow developers build mapping applications with Leaflet. So basically, it'll allow you to use Esri services. So if you have feature services or map services, you can use them through Leaflet using Esri Leaflet. And so it's basically another JavaScript file that you add into your header, and then it gives you more functionality within Leaflet. So Esri Leaflet comes from an open source social coding background, and so you can actually view the code behind Leaflet in GitHub. There's quite a few plugins available, so I'll just briefly show you the documentation for Leaflet. There's a lot of tutorials here, and you can go into your plugins and examples. So yeah, if that's what you want to go with, you can start with that. It's lightweight, but you might not have the same integration with ArcGIS Online or the functionality that you need through the Esri JavaScript API. But for a lot of applications, it will be perfectly good. Just to give you an example of something that was developed with Esri Leaflet, Esri UK recently launched an extension for Chrome. So you might notice here that every time I open a new tab, there's a new map appears in the background. So there's Esri Maps in the background, and you can see where it is in the UK, and it gives a brief description of it, as well as the XY. So this is actually built using Leaflet. So if you look at the source of this, so I just pressed Control and U to view the source. You can see the leaflet is used here, and you can have a look at the common.js file that's used to develop this. Okay, so what is the ArcGIS API for JavaScript used for? And the simple answer is ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online, the functionality behind ArcGIS Online is all in the API, and it's all developed on top of the JavaScript API. This is one of the reasons why the API is constantly being updated, because there's always new features that are wanted in ArcGIS Online, and so it keeps the API up to date. And like Esri are always trying to make it easier on themselves as well. So if the more you have in the API, the easier it is to develop. And just to compare briefly with the Esri Leaflet offering, the JavaScript API is an enterprise level offering. It's heavily integrated with the ArcGIS Platform, and as such follows a traditional route for distribution, development and support. So the source code behind it isn't available, but you just reference it within your code as with Leaflet. And again, there's support available through technical support. And so like that kind of gives you part of the answer as to what the API is used for. It's used for mapping and visualization. It's like for everything in ArcGIS Online. So anything like from mapping and visualization, integration with ArcGIS, the platform. You have identity management, so you have your user stores within ArcGIS Online, and so you can build your apps around them, and so it simplifies the process for the developer. And it's designed to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so that you can build your mapping apps with as little code as you can. It's also designed for usability. It comes with many customizable widgets that are optimized for clean, responsive app design. And so the current release of the JavaScript API is at 3.15. So it's a relatively mature version. As you can imagine, it's set at 3.0 and it has developed into 3.15. So it has quite advanced functionality, and there's lots of documentation and samples on the Esri JavaScript website. And again, it's built around the Esri platform. I just want to briefly go through three things that have been added into the 3.15 API. So the first thing is client-side geometry. So typically, if you want to create a buffer, for example, I'm just going to look at this live sample. If you were to create a buffer, you would have to send a point to a server. So server would buffer that and send the geometry back. But what the new client-side geometry allows you to do is do that client-side, so it's done within the browser, and so it saves. It's more efficient basically, and it'll make it a lot quicker. They've also improved some of the pop-ups. So, for example, you can you can get your pop-up to dock on the side or on the bottom or where you want, and you can view the pop-up information in there. So this was recently added to the API, and then it was added into ArcGIS Online. So for example, this is the embed template. It's I think it's called a minimalist template within the configurable templates. But you can see it's quite nice. It views your pop-up on the left, and you can move around and view everything on the left. But now what's been worked on is oops. Sorry, just give me 1 sec now. I'll get this set up properly. Yeah, so what's been developed now is the 4.0 release of the API. So this is going to allow for more complex. It's going to simplify the API first of all, and second of all, it's going to focus more on 3D functionality. So if you're trying to choose between 3.15 and 4.0, the way you go about it is you'd see firstly if there's some of the functionality within the 4.0 release that you need, well then obviously you're going to have to go with that. Map rotation is another option within the 4.0 release, and future innovation is going to be concentrated in the 4.0 release starting from 2017. So for this year, the 3.15, the 3.x release will be the focus, but starting from next year, it will be moved towards the 4.0 release. Now the 4.0 release is still in beta, and it's due to be released, I would imagine, at the next developer summit. That's to be confirmed. Just to give you an example of some things that can be done with the 4.0 release that are really nice. I've just a couple of things here that I want to show you. So this is a flight simulator that someone in Esri developed. So it basically just has a plane moving, but it has 3 different views, two side views, and then the view in front, and it's all in 3D. So it's quite cool, and you can change the speed and the altitude and the heading. So now it does take a while. It's in 3D obviously, so it takes a while to load, but once it gets going, it's pretty impressive. This is another example of the 4.0 release, and they just show the GDP growth around the world. And for these, you can actually find the code on GitHub as well. So in the flight simulator case, it's available. Here. And I have a little GIF of it just to show you what it's like. Another thing that's been added is some cool pop-ups. So they've been adding in pop-up actions into the API. So if you click on this, you can measure the length of it. So through the pop-up. So it's not a separate window. It's done through the pop-up, and you can undock it and move it around. Maybe not move around, but you can view it as a normal pop-up or dock it. And again, the code behind this is here. So if you click the Explore in the Sandbox, you can see all the code behind that. And the aim is really to make it as easy as possible to create really good apps that are responsive on many devices. Now I'm nearing the end of my my slideshow, so we'll get into the coding pretty soon. But I just wanted to show you the release cycle and where we are now. So we're at 3.15 now. It was released, I think, in December, and 3.16 will be coming out in the next couple of months. Beta 1 and 2 have actually they're done and gone. We're at beta 3 now for the 4.0 API, and the final release will be out relatively soon. And then for the 3.0 version, as I said, there'll be active development through 2016, but the primary innovation will be shifted to the 4.x release, and there'll be tech support through 2018 for the 3.x API. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of samples that I've put together. The first one is actually just comes from the samples that Esri have. So I'll just close some of these, and I'll go into the guide here. I'm going to create a map. So this is a basic template of what you would use to just view a map. So I'll explore that in a sandbox. And what I first want to show you is basically how you add in the API. So now the API is added in already here. You just have to add in the CSS. Oh, sorry, no, the script is here. Okay, so you have the reference to the 3.15 release of this API. So that's the JavaScript behind it. And then this is the CSS. So this is the styling behind it. And you can add in your own bit of styling then as well. So I'm going to download this. Just get that and put it in the folder. Okay, so here's our simple map. And just to go through that briefly, what you have here is your basic HTML. It's HTML5 doc type. You have your headers, your basic headers, your title, and then you have your reference in your style sheet. So that's referencing the JavaScript CSS. And then this is the this is the API CSS, and this is the API JavaScript. This is just additional styling. And so then this is where the script is. So all that's needed to create a map is to use this require statement, And so to add in the map module, you put in Esri/map, and then this and this are linked. So this can be referred to as map. And then you have this here, so it's Dojo DOM ready. So this basically makes sure that the HTML is loaded before you do anything. So this code won't execute until the HTML is fully loaded. Then to create a map, so you're creating a map variable here, and then you're saying map is equal to new map. So this creates a map object essentially, and you have various parameters in here. So you have your first parameter is the HTML div that you want the map to be located in. So in this case, it's just a div with ID map. So that's a reference in this div down here. And then you have various options in here then. So you have your base map, so you can choose whatever base map you want. You can choose wherever you want to center it and whatever zoom scale you want to set it to. So just before I go on, I want to briefly look at the documentation and just give you a feel for that side of things. So I'm going to go into the API reference and go to the Esri map module. And you'll see here what we've done is basically constructed a map object. And so what this will do is create a map within the div that we've referenced. And if you click on this, it'll give you your options. So there's your div ID, and then you have your options here. So we've created an object. It's expecting an object. So these are all the different parameters that you can set within the map object. There's quite a few there, as you can imagine. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail there. Then you can reference CSS if you want to, and you can style your map as you want. The next thing I want to talk about is the properties, and this is something that you'll use quite a bit if you want to access the map object and what you want to get out of that. So I'm going to briefly show you that, and then there's methods that you can use to do particular things. So I'll give you an example of that as well. But a key thing is the events. So you can monitor events that are happening within your map. Yeah, you can monitor clicks if the base map has changed, if the extent has changed, and you can have code behind that will do something once that happens. So they're the basic things behind creating a map. And I'll just discuss these and show you in code how these would look. So we have here we have a map object. So I'm just going to format this. So really, the first thing we want is a load event, because we want to do things on the map. We want to do things to the map once it loads. So the structure of that is map.on, and then you put in your event name. So in this case, it's going to be load. And then once this load happens, I want to do something, so I'm going to have a function in here. And now when the map loads, it will come through to here. And typically, you'll get a response as well, so you can put in here response, and that will be accessible here. So I'm going to open up the map here. Okay, so there's my simple map. I'm going to press F12, which is going to open up my developer tools. typically they'll open up down here, so you can alter that as you need to if you want to have it in a separate pane. I'm going to just leave it down here so we can see them both at the same time. So now I'm going to refresh it because I put in a debugger there. So basically what a debugger does is it pauses at that point in the events. So now we're within the load, so the map has loaded properly, and you can see the response there. So if I go into the console now, I can put in response, and you'll be returned your map object as well as the target. So then with that response, you can check various things. So I'm going to say response.map.say visible, and so the map is visible. And these the way you can get these from here. So what I'm doing is just using some of these, the properties that you want to access. So I can put in extent if I want, and there's your extent. And let's say I want to get my center. There's my center point, and let's say I just want to get my latitude. I can just get my latitude there. So that's how you access the map object and various things about the maps, various properties about the map. So now I'm going to just go into methods briefly. So the methods are displayed below the properties in here. So I'm going to create a method that will disable map navigation. So for these methods, typically you would do this within the load event. So I'm going to say map.disable map navigation. I'm going to refresh it, just let the debugger go through, and now I'm clicking here but I can't navigate the map anymore. And what I'm going to do then is set the base map. So I want to change the base map to, say, dark grey. And there's my map changes to dark grey. Now initially it's set up as a topographic map, but then once the map loads and this map.setBaseMap is run, then the base map is changed. So if we were to, I'll change the debugger here actually. This hopefully will work. The map mightn't fully be visible. Yeah, so the tiles aren't viewable yet. But yeah, so actually I'll just show you in the console. So if I go in here, I can go to console.map.basemap. Oh, sorry, not console, response. So it's undefined at the moment. Okay, so it just hasn't quite been loaded. Again, there's another event for this. So if you go down to your events, you can say basemap change. There's probably another load event or something that will tell you once your base map is loaded. Okay, so I'm going to set another event, and this is going to monitor the if the base map has changed, it's going to monitor that. So I'm going to set another event. So I'm using the same format as up here. So I'm just going to copy that and close my. And then so this is, I'm going to change the event that I'm looking at. And I'm going to call base map change. And so this will load once the base map is changed. So if I refresh this, okay, I have a syntax error somewhere. Yeah. Missing bracket. So I'll refresh that now. And you see it's after coming into the base map change, because what we've done here is change the base map from the topographic to the dark grey base map. So the next thing I want to do is add a base map toggle. I'm going to just change this debugger here to console. That's it. Just put in a quick alert and say base map has been changed. Actually, Joe, I'm going to show you the response there as well. So I'll refresh this, and I'll come into this debugger, and now I can check out the response that's been given back. So what's returned is your current base map and your previous base map. So it was topographic, and it's been changed to dark grey now, and you can view the layers within that. So in the case of the dark grey base map, there's two layers. One for the names, I'd imagine, of places, and the other for the underlying base map. Okay, so that's enough there. I'm just going to alert that the base map has been changed. Okay, and now I'm going to add a widget to toggle. So I'm going to create a toggle variable. I'm going to call, this is a new module, so we're going to have to add in a base map toggle module. And I'm going to set the map is equal to map. These are basically the options that I'm setting within the toggle. I'm going to set the base map that I want to change to a satellite. And then I'm going to reference the div ID that this is going to be pushed into. So this is going to be called base map toggle. And then I'm going to add in another div within here. I'm going to copy that div, and just so it's clear, I'm going to put in base map toggle div. Okay, so now if I'm to load that now, it's not going to load properly. You're basically going to get errors in the console. Just to show you what you would get, refresh here. And you see here, base map toggle is not defined. So that's because the module hasn't been added in. So we need to add in the module. These are available from the API reference. If you go to the preferred alias, argument aliases, that's a good place to get them. Alternatively, you can go into the module itself. So in this case, we're using the base map toggle digit. So this is what we'll have to add in. Now most of the time these are pretty much the same, but I always try to use exactly what's referenced here, and just be sure to always put it in before the DOM ready. That has to be at the end, because as I said earlier, these modules link. So this and this link, and this and this link. Okay, so we're nearly ready to go then. So I've saved that. Let's refresh it. You can see base map has been changed because I put that in earlier. And we still don't have base map. Toggle is not defined. So let's see what's going on there. Toggle. Okay, so well, we haven't started. So what you have to put in then is basemap.started. And it's still not defined, so let me just have a quick look here. Okay, so where I'm going wrong here is I need to have satellite in inverted commas. And there we go, so the errors are released now. But it's not really looking the way I want it. The base map toggle is just displayed at the top. And you know, as we did earlier, we have the alert that comes up every time the base map is changed. So we want to style it a little bit more. So you can style it by referencing the div ID here. So I'm going to go up here into my style. Now typically you would have different files for your JavaScript and your CSS, but just for the case of demonstration, I'm just showing it's a bit easier to show you in the one file. So this hash here means that you're referencing a div ID, so the basemap toggle div ID, and I'm going to add in a couple of things to style this. It's going to change the position. I wanted 20 pixels from the top, 20 pixels from the right, and I wanted to appear on top, so I'm going to put in a Z index of 50. And now let's refresh it and see how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to remove that alert. I'm just going to comment it out. And there we have a nice looking map. Now I still can't refresh it again. I still can't navigate because we've disabled that in the map. But you can toggle the map. You can toggle the base maps. So that's how you go about creating a basic map. Now there are lots of different widgets like this that you can use, and you might have noticed in here that I got the base map toggle within Esri Digit. So these are all the different things that you can add in. Like you can add in your legend and your directions, search, print, and there's a nice one here actually, the elevations profile that was recently enough added in. Now as you can see here, it's still in beta. I was actually no samples of it yet. Yeah, that's another one that's nice, and that's using the new elevation model. I'm pretty sure the elevations template that you can use from ArcGIS Online. Okay, so there's a basic map anyway, and that's a good start. It gives you a good starting point for the documentation to know how to use the documentation. You know how to use a constructor, you know how to set the CSS properties, you know how to use the methods, and you know how to use the events. And like a lot of the time, you want to integrate it with ArcGIS Online, so a web map is always going to be on like near enough top of your list. So you can leverage web maps through the API as well. And there's some very good samples in this. So if you go into the guide and go into the tutorials, and it'll show you exactly how to use a web map. And you can view that in the sandbox as well. So to do that, you use the same, you know, we've all the same stuff up here pretty much. There's a little bit of styling in here. But the main thing is here is you use this ArcGIS Utils module to create your map. And then that sets your map ID. And so you input your map ID, where you want the map to be located. And then they're setting up a legend then as well, so they're using the legend digit here. Okay, so I know we're nearly coming to the end of the session, but I just want to show you something that I have been working on for the last couple of weeks ago. I was working on this, so I just want to show you the code behind it. So what this is doing is querying a locator. So like everything doesn't have to be like focused around the map. You can use anything in platform. You can make use of. So as you can see, we have a locator on an Amazon site which is secured, so that's why I have to sign in here. And this will give back results then. So the results from the locator are then just displayed in a nice format. Just give this a sec now. And so when you move down, then you have your map. Again, we have the imagery digit in here as well. And we're actually using the Google Charts API. So based on this point, it's querying a web map, and within that web map, there's 3 different layers, and I'm referencing those layers within. I'm referencing those layers. I'm getting the values from those particular points, and then I'm sending them to the Google JavaScript charting API. And so then that's how these charts are created. And I'm also getting some geo-enrichment data from the Michael Bauer. So this is coming from ArcGIS Online. And just to give you a brief overview, I know we're nearly at the end now. I'll just give you a brief overview of what's involved in that. So as you can see, there's lots of different modules up here, and you get used to this as you use the API. This is our main file. Now I'm using a proxy here, so that you don't have to log into ArcGIS Online. So I have my my credentials stored in the proxy. So basically, anytime you're going through the geoenrich.esri.com URL prefix, it references my credentials, and because this is a premium aspect of ArcGIS Online, it'll use my credits then. And then I'm using the search module. So this just allows me to search something. And once that's loaded, it'll set a couple of things for the locators. So you'll see here I'm referencing locators. I have a config file where you can put in your locators, so you can put in as many locators as you want. It's an array, and it'll add in all of these. You can see here there's quite a bit in the config. You can put in search value, default search value, what locator you want selected. So you can select a particular one of these locators if you want, or you can select them all. So we'll search them all. You can define whether you want to use the Esri locator, if you want to use the proxy or not, and then where the proxy is. Now this is the web map that I'm referencing, that the charts are coming from. And you can have various different types of charts and put them in 3D, and put in a hole in the middle of the pie chart if you want. You can also put in URL parameters. So I'm allowing people to put in search values as a URL parameter so that they don't have to put it in every time. It's pretty useful if you're testing stuff. And then I'm constructing up the form based on the return values from the locator. I won't go into too much detail there, but I'm using Bootstrap for the form. And then this is where I'm using the geo-enrichment. So the infographics carousel, that's a digit. So again, this is where it's starting, and it's getting all these different variables from the Michael Bauer data, and then displaying them in the carousel. Just to briefly show you the Google Charts, what I'm doing here is looping the web maps that are in the config file. So in the config file, you can reference more than one web map. So it's looping around these web maps. And then it's getting the details about that web map from ArcGIS Online. And it's creating a query, so you can query the feature layers within the web map. So I'm creating a query for each layer, and then I'm sending the queries to the REST URLs and getting responses. So they're all being pushed together in a promise. So the API is based on Dojo, so you can use this promises module within Dojo, and then they'll all be returned together. And again, you can loop around those responses and create your charts around them. So for the Google Charts, there's a particular format that's needed, and you put them together, and then you can push them to, I think, this draw chart. I think that's where, draw chart is down here, yeah. So this draw chart is sending a couple of things then to this function, and this is where it's getting onto Google and creating the charts. Again, the proxy is available on the Esri GitHub account. Okay, so I'll finish up now. I'll just have a couple of finishing slides to go through. Okay, so as a follow-up to this, what you could do is sign up for a developer account. So this gives you access to ArcGIS Online, an organization account with one user, and I think you get 50 credits with that. But it's a good place to start anyway. And there's a developer within the developer account. You can log into developer.esri.com or developer.arcgis.com, and within there's actually an option to create feature services. So there's a really nice way of creating feature services in there. So that's well worth a look. I then probably look at the source code in Esri that's available on the Esri GitHub account that's available, and have a look at some of the tutorials that are available through the API. Again, there's a good tutorial within the Esri GitHub account. If you go into GeoDev Hacker Labs, that's the name of the repository. We run training courses as well. So if you're not familiar with JavaScript and you'd like an introduction to JavaScript, we have a course on the 8th of June. And if you want to learn more about the API, we'll be running a course on the 9th and 10th of June. So you can get in touch with the team here if you want to get involved there. Dates for Dublin are still to be announced. And just to finish up then, feel free to ask me any questions. I will keep an eye on this chat here. So let me just have a look. There might be someone in here already. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask here. The IDE, okay, so there's a couple of questions here. The first one is what IDE was I using? So the IDE that I was using is Brackets. So I used to use Sublime Text, but I find Brackets is quite nice. Yeah, just that's what the IDE that I'm using is. I have a question then, is there any license option between 5 years of license and 50 years of license yet? No, I don't believe there is. Now I can confirm that, but I don't think there is. Could I provide links to tutorials in relation to developing apps with ArcGIS API code? Yeah, absolutely. And there's loads available on the. I think there was a link in the PowerPoint there, so let me just get that. So you can go onto the GitHub account, and there's a great run through of everything basically you need to do within the API. It's really good. And then there's another one. If you go to if you actually just go to the JavaScript API documentation, there's some good tutorials here as well. So if you go into the guide, there's a lot of tutorials there. And this one here, Write a Class, is something that you could use quite a bit, and it's very useful. And I have a question then, where can we download the presentation? So this, I've recorded this webinar, and so it will be available on YouTube in the next couple of days. The presentation, I'll send out a follow-on email to everyone who's attended and anyone who couldn't make it. So I'll send on an email with basically links to everything that I've shown here. And I'll include the YouTube link in that, as well as some of the tutorials that you can use. So I think that's all the questions covered. Let me just have a quick look in the chat. Yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that. Thanks to everyone for joining in. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to contact us. My email is in the chat window there. And yeah, enjoy your day and talk to you soon.